100 days. It's been 100 days since President Donald Trump started his second administration. 100 days since President Donald Trump, in the icy, freezing cold temperatures of Washington, D.C. on January 20th, huddled in the Capitol Rotunda with every single senator and congressperson, every member of his cabinet, the First Lady, his entire family, so that he could take, for the second time, the oath of office for President of the United States of America.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
An exciting moment as Vice President Kamala Harris, who failed in her attempts to beat Donald Trump in the presidential election, and Joe Biden, the butt of many jokes, stood by watching as President Donald Trump became the 47th president of the United States. And in that 100 days, President Donald Trump and his team of warriors have done more for this country than probably any group of individuals in such a short time. And yesterday at the White House, they kicked it off in grand fashion with a celebration of Donald Trump's immigration reform and his deportation success. What they did was they lined the White House lawn with signs. There were yard signs that depicted the names and faces of illegal alien criminals who've been arrested by ICE and deported. It had not just their face, but also the crime that they committed, whether it was rape or murder or homicide of some kind, drug trafficking or child pornography. Over 100 of these placards were placed on the White House lawn, and as the media will tell you, they were placed in a position where they were totally unavoidable.
White House has put up about 100 posters of what they say are unauthorized immigrants who have been arrested for violent crimes. You can see them there. They put them up on the driveway of the White House. If you look here, that's the West Wing just at the forefront, the executive mansion itself to the left. But what's particularly noteworthy about this location is it is right directly behind the positions where TV correspondents do their hits from the White House lawn. So therefore, no matter what network you're on, that includes MSNBC, if you're doing a hit from the White House right now, those pictures will be behind you. The White House doing a briefing in about a half hour about what they're doing here.
Zing. Every single media outlet, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, NBC, whoever wanted to do a live hit from the White House lawn was forced to have these signs in the back of their shot. They were forced to report on immigration because that's something that they don't like to talk about. They like to talk about Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. They like to follow these Congress people and these senators and these representatives down to El Salvador to meet with this guy and sip margaritas. But they don't like to tell you about the actual thugs and criminals and murderers and rapists who have been removed by Tom Homan, by ICE, by Kristi Noem, and by President Donald Trump back to whence they came, keeping America even safer. And in fact, when you look at all of the accomplishments that President Donald Trump has had in his first 100 days, truly, immigration is probably one of the most significant. And that's why at the White House yesterday morning, as the press was doing their live hits in front of these banners, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, was doing an early morning briefing with the border czar himself, Tom Homan.
Today, we kick off 100-day week with a focus on the president's historic effort to secure our southern border. Later this afternoon, President Trump will sign an executive order on law and order and another executive order on sanctuary cities. The first EO will strengthen and unleash America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. The second EO is centered around protecting American communities from criminal aliens, and it will direct the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security to publish a list of state and local jurisdictions that obstruct the enforcement of federal immigration laws. After these are signed, the president will have signed more than 140 executive orders already, rapidly approaching the total number signed by the Biden administration over the course of 4 years in office.
And keep in mind, the majority of those orders, or at least the first crop of those orders, were undoing all of the terrible executive orders that Joe Biden had signed in his first 100 days. Joe Biden signed orders to undo every great thing President Donald Trump had done. So Donald Trump, when he returned to office, had to sign orders again to undo all of the terrible things that Joe Biden had done. And the terrible things he did mostly focused on the border. And Tom Homan was on tap to talk about why Joe Biden was so bad on the border and why he purposely, it seemed, opened up the American southern border and destroyed our sovereignty.
And as far as releasing so many people, you know why the Biden administration released millions of people in the United States? No one ever talks about it. I'll talk about it. Why did they release people into the interior of the United States and put them, rather than put them into an ice bed? Why not put them in an empty ice bed at $127 a night rather than in a hotel room at $500 a night? They did it on purpose, because when you put them in an ice detention bed, they get a hearing in 35 days. Court records show 9 out of 10 people claim asylum, get order removal, they're gone. But if you release them and put them in a hotel room at $500 a night, their hearings can be 5, 7, 9 years if you pull out all appeals. And what are they hoping for then? That another Democrat administration is in power. They can award an amnesty to millions. This is about selling this country out for future political power. That's what it was. The law clearly says if you arrive at our border without proper documentation, you shall be detained. Not maybe, not think about it, shall. And that's what President Trump's doing. Catch and release is over. That's what the law says, and that's what we've done.
Yeah, it was all deliberate. It was all a ploy. Joe Biden spent extra money to keep criminals from getting processed by the courts. And Tom Homan said it would have been a lot cheaper and a lot safer to do it the other way. But that wasn't the plan that Joe Biden had in mind. That wasn't the plan that the Democrats wanted to execute. They executed their plans perfectly, and then they created sanctuary cities all over the country so that whenever these illegals were shipped to sanctuary cities, they were forced to take care of them, and they also chose not to cooperate with ICE. Well, Tom Homan had a very strict message for those sanctuary cities yesterday.
I said from day one, you don't have to support ICE's operations. You can support sanctuary cities if that's what you desire to do. Sanctuary cities can stand aside and watch ICE keep their communities safe, because any public official, whether you're mayor, city councilman, or governor, their number one responsibility is protection of the communities. And ICE has been clear, we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. I can't believe there's any elected official, and especially a judge, that doesn't believe we should be doing that, and they should be helping us. But I said from day one, you can sit aside and watch, you can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted, judge or not.
Yeah, judge or not, whether you're Judge Cano in New Mexico, whether you're Judge Duggan in wherever it's in Philadelphia, where was she? I forget. Whether you're any of these judges, you've got to make sure that you are protecting the law and order. I mean, that's what you did. That's what you swore your oath to do. And ICE will come get you. And he doesn't care if you're a judge. If you break the law, if you harbor an illegal immigrant, if you make it more difficult for President Donald Trump's immigration system, the Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, ICE, to do their job, you will be prosecuted under the law, the rule of law of the United States of America, something that the Democrats and the Joe Biden administration never really cared for. The law mostly got in their way. Whenever they had a plan, the law was something they had to skirt or just bulldoze. They weren't really big fans of the law. And as far as immigration goes, you're getting these conflicting reports. The media is reporting that Donald Trump's immigration and deportation numbers are lower than Joe Biden's, which is just, what's a good word for it? Poppycock, we'll go with. And Tom Homan is very pleased with how the deportations have been going thus far.
Last number I got was 139,000 deportations. Am I happy with the numbers? Are good, especially if you look at the ICE numbers. The ICE arrest removals are far beyond Biden. But I read the media. Oh, ICE, the deportations are behind Biden administration. Well, why? Because they counted border removals. We don't have 10.5 million people crossing the border. We don't have border removals. So Joe Biden could have deported 5% of his encounters, and numbers will still be higher than us on the border removals, because we have a secure border, the most secure border in the history of this nation. Compare apples to apples, ICE arrests and deportations are far more than Joe Biden.
Yeah, look at that. This is all the fake news media trying to twist and turn the narrative, trying to make sure that people don't know the truth. And Tom Homan is right there, as well as Karoline Leavitt, to make sure that they do know the truth. In fact, the media asked some really bizarre questions. One of the weirdest questions I got, or one of the weirdest questions I heard, rather, at the White House press briefing yesterday was this.
If border crossings are at a record low, why should it still be considered an emergency?
It's because of what has happened on the last administration. We got to ensure that not 1 ounce of fentanyl comes across the border to kill Americans. The president has declared the cartels in Mexico a terrorist organization, along with MS-13 TDA. They've killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. It's an emergency till we shut it down. It's an emergency till the cartels are wiped off the face of this earth. President Trump's committed to saving every life. Now, I just mentioned gotaways, 38 yesterday. Who are the gotaways? Where do they come from? We had over 2 million gotaways under Joe Biden's administration. Why did 2 million people pay more to get away? Under the Biden administration, you pay a cartel this amount of money to cross the border. Cartel's job ends at the border. Just turn yourself in a green uniform. Get released in 24 hours. Get a free airline ticket to the city of your choice. Get a free hotel room. Get 3 meals a day. Get free medical care. Get work authorization in 90 to 120 days, which is the real reason they came here. Why did 2 million people pay more to get away? Because they didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. We've arrested over 400 people on the terrorist watch list coming across the southern border in 4 years. How many of the 2 million came? How many of the 2 million came from countries sponsoring terror? You think it's zero? Then you're ignorant. This is the biggest national security failure this country's ever seen. This is the border emergency until we end it, end all of it. We're making good strides. But right now, it's still an emergency until we shut it down.
Yeah, it's an emergency until I say it's an emergency, ladies. So sit down and why is this still an emergency? Well, because the war's not over. We've still got a lot of people in this country that we're trying to get out, and we want to make sure that border stays secure so that they don't come back in. It just seems to make sense to everybody except for, well, the media. Later in the day, Karoline Leavitt had a second press briefing for the new media, and she talked about, again, the 99 days of promises kept and leading into the 100 days today.
Today officially marks the 99th day of promises made and kept by President Trump. Our primary focus today is how President Trump has fulfilled one of his central campaign promises to the American people in record time, ending the massive illegal invasion and securing our nation's southern and northern borders. As we know, Joe Biden allowed millions of criminal illegal aliens to pour into our country over the past 4 years. And as we all know, a significant number of those aliens have been vicious gang members, murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. Innocent Americans like Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungray, Rachel Morin, and many others have been murdered because of Joe Biden's open border. President Trump made a promise to the American people, to all of you and your audiences, to end the carnage and keep our country safe. And he has overwhelmingly delivered on that promise.
And he will continue to, especially with his team, well suited to do just that. And when you look across the board, I mean, it's not just Tom Homan, but Secretary Noel.
If you talk to all of these agents that have been down here for years, they say it's night and day difference from where we were a year ago, that they were overwhelmed and with illegals and people that were turning themselves in because they knew that they would be released into the United States undocumented with no consequences.
Yeah, now if you turn yourself in, you're going to be turned right away, and that's why nobody's coming to the United States of America. But it's everybody. It's Kristi Noem at the Department of Homeland Security. It's Elon Musk at Doge. It's everybody. Scott Bessent at the Treasury Department. Even energy. When you look at what's going on with energy, there was a dramatic reduction in the strategic oil reserve. Joe Biden pillaged and plundered our strategic oil reserve for political gains. He wanted lower gas prices. He wanted to make it seem like gas prices were going down when it was politically convenient for him and his cronies around election times. And so he would just walk into the strategic oil reserve and release millions and millions of barrels, which made us less safe if there ever was a need for us to use the strategic oil reserve. And President Donald Trump is now refilling it. And he's doing it with the help of Energy Secretary Chris Wright.
Is the price right enough pun intended, I suppose, Mr. Secretary, to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve right now?
Oh, absolutely. We are refilling the reserve now, and we will continue to refill the reserve the whole time I'm in office. You know, that was just such an irresponsible action to drain that reserve so quickly for electoral reasons. And in fact, it was drained so fast, it did some damaging to the facilities. And so right now, we only can fill 2 of the 4 major salt caverns we have. So we're doing repair work on the other 2. We're slowly filling the other 2. And I'm trying to get some funds through Congress that'll give us a longer-term runway to fill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at the fastest rate we can.
I mean, it's amazing. It's so just the amount of irresponsibility that Joe Biden's administration showed, not just removing the strategic oil or the petroleum from the Strategic Oil Reserve, but damaging the place in the process to the point where it can't be refilled as easily as possible. It's just thank God that guy's gone. There are problems in this country that I didn't even know were problems until President Donald Trump came back to office. For example, there's a problem with the trucking and the commerce industry with language barriers. Apparently, there's not a lot of English-speaking truckers, and that causes some distribution channels to get clogged.
And then the third executive order, which actually speaks to the heart of your question earlier about the Uber drivers, will be a order directing the Department of Transportation to include English literacy tests for our truckers. This is a big problem in the trucking community that, unless you're in that community, you might not know. But there's a lot of communication problems between truckers on the road with federal officials and local officials as well, which obviously is a public safety risk. So we're going to ensure that our truckers, who are the backbone of our economy, are all able to speak English. That's a very common sense policy in the United States of America. So the president will be signing that later this afternoon.
Look at that. Executive orders, again, for problems that no one even thought of. But that's what President Donald Trump has been doing in his first 100 days. Imagine what he's going to do in his next 100 days. Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, spoke about President Donald Trump's accomplishments thus far.
I see on my desk, Sean, examples of the illegal aliens that President Trump's Department of Homeland Security and Justice have arrested, and the heinous, unthinkable crimes they've committed. The assault and rape of underage children, the violent beating and murder of moms, shooting innocent people in cold blood in the street, crime after crime after crime. And as you said, Sean, those sanctimonious, pompous jerks in the left-wing corporate press refuse to cover any of these crimes, refuse to interview or cover any of their victims, do not demonstrate an ounce of human empathy for any of the suffering that Joe Biden's border invasion, the Democrat Party's border invasion, has wrought on this country. And so the White House, so President Trump's White House, has forced, brilliantly, these outlets to acknowledge these crimes, to acknowledge these atrocities by putting these posters, these mugshots and their criminal histories right behind them as they stand there and do their shots every single day. And we're going to keep forcing the media to cover the atrocities committed by the illegal aliens that Joe Biden and the Democrat Party have brought into our country.
Okay, that was more about the immigration again, but behind him, as you were watching, there's a list of all of the accomplishments that President Donald Trump has had in these first 100 days, including declassifying the JFK files, getting rid of the penny, attacking anti-Semitism on college campuses, making sure that the Department of Education is slowly being dismantled, cutting USAID aid, investigating NPR over and over again. Every single thing that Donald Trump has promised to do, wiping out DEI in the military. I mean, all of these things that are going to make us safer, that are going to make us richer, that are going to make us stronger, that are going to make us greater again, Donald Trump has done in the first 100 days. And we still have so many more days ahead of us. President Donald Trump will be in Michigan today to celebrate his first 100 days. And we will have all kinds of coverage of the accomplishments that he's had and the things that he's planning on our second podcast. If you have not yet subscribed, do yourself a favor. If you enjoy this podcast, you're going to love that one. It's called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. We do it every day at noon live on all of our live streaming platforms. Plus, you can go and download it on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Just search, download, and enjoy.